All right, future nurses, doctors, and healthcare pros. If you've got an exam on cancer pathophysiology breathing down your neck, don't worry, we got you. In this explainer, we are going to visually walk through exactly how cancer develops, starting from the outside world and going all the way down to the chaos inside a single cell. Seriously, think of this as your exam-ready visual map.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a huge question to get us started. When it comes to cancer, what really matters more? The DNA you inherit from your parents or your zip code? And by zip code, I mean your environment, your lifestyle, all those external exposures.
Well, the answer might actually surprise you. According to the National Cancer Institute, only about 10%, maybe even less, of all cancers are caused by those inherited genetic mutations. I mean, that's just a sliver, right? So, what does that really mean? It means a huge chunk of cancers are in fact preventable, and that tells us we need to pay very close attention to that other 90%.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Just think about it for a second. Over your entire life, all these external factors, what you eat, where you live, what's in the air you breathe, they're in this constant back and forth with your internal biology. So that's the journey we're going to take. We'll start with those external triggers and follow them all the way inside the cell to see how that conversation can go so wrong. So let's begin that journey from the outside in. First up, part one, the triggers. You can think of these as the external sparks that have the potential to start the fire. Now, the list of potential triggers is pretty long, but for your exams, they usually fall into a few major categories that you absolutely need to know. We're talking about the big players here: tobacco, diet, obesity, alcohol, not getting enough physical activity, certain infections, and of course, environmental exposures, like pollution and radiation. Okay, I know this chart looks like a lot, but don't get bogged down in every single box. Just focus on the colors for a second. The red and orange boxes are where the evidence linking something to cancer is either convincing or probable. See this red box right here under colorectal cancer? That's for processed meat. The evidence is just incredibly strong. The big takeaway here isn't to memorize the chart, but to see the sheer volume of research telling us these links are real. All right, so we've seen the external triggers, but how do they actually cause the damage? Let's zoom way in. Section 2, inside the cell. This right here is the core pathophysiology you need to be able to visualize for your exam. So for your exam, it's not enough to just know that smoking causes cancer. You have to be able to see the mechanism in your head to visualize that chain reaction. So let's get specific. How does inhaling tobacco smoke actually physically lead to a tumor? Here is the step-by-step progression. First, that smoke exposure causes chronic inflammation and a huge amount of something called oxidative stress. Think of it as constant irritation at the cellular level. That's step one. Then, step two, all that stress directly damages the cell's DNA, and it starts throwing a wrench in the normal cell cycle. The regular safety checks begin to fail. Step 3 is so important. This is where epigenetics comes into play. The chemical environment around the DNA changes, and it starts turning off the very genes designed to protect you, your tumor suppressor genes. And finally, step 4, with the guards basically asleep, these unstable cells are now free to multiply, expand, and invade nearby tissues. That is the path from a puff of smoke to a tumor. Now, I just threw a big word at you, epigenetics, and you have to get this concept. The key thing to remember is epigenetics doesn't change your actual DNA sequence. The letters of the code stay the same. Instead, it's all about chemical tags that get stuck onto the DNA, controlling which genes get turned on and which get turned off. Think of it this way. Your DNA is a giant cookbook. Epigenetics is the chef who decides which recipes to actually make today. And those environmental factors we talked about, they're like a very persuasive critic whispering in the chef's ear. Okay, so a cancer cell is bad news, but it can't do everything on its own. It needs help. It needs a supportive neighborhood to really thrive. And that brings us to section 3, the tumor's supportive neighborhood. We're going to look at how a body-wide condition like obesity can create the absolute perfect environment for cancer to grow. First, let's just get a sense of the scale here. Obesity isn't linked to just 1 or 2 cancers. It's a major risk factor for at least 13 different types, all over the body. This tells you right away that this isn't a localized problem. It's a systemic one. And here is how it can happen at the local level. This mechanism is fascinating and frankly kind of sinister. A tumor cell can actually hijack its neighboring fat cells, which are called adipocytes. It corrupts them, changing their function and turning them into something new: cancer-associated adipocytes, or CAAs for short. These CAAs basically become traitors, working for the tumor.
So, what exactly do these corrupted fat cells do? Oh, they are busy. They pump out inflammatory signals. They release free fatty acids, which is like a superfuel for those hungry cancer cells. They churn out enzymes that literally chew through tissue, clearing a path for the tumor to invade. And they produce wacky levels of hormones. Basically, they create this perfect little pro-cancer bubble for the tumor to do its worst. But it's not just a local thing. The effects ripple out across the whole body. Obesity creates these systemic changes, like having too much insulin or being in a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. All of this creates what scientists call a tumor-permissive environment. It's like it makes the soil in the entire garden just perfect for weeds to pop up, not just in one little patch. Okay, take a breath. We've gone from the environment down into the cell and into the tumor's neighborhood. Now, for our last section, let's zoom all the way back out to the societal lens and see how this all plays out for real people. So let's look at some real-world data for cervical cancer. The blue bars show the rate of new cases being diagnosed. The orange bars show the death rate. Now notice the difference. While the new cases vary, look at the mortality rates for Black and Hispanic women. They are significantly higher. The data shows a really clear disparity in who survives this disease. So the obvious question is, why? Is there a simple biological reason? Well, the source material is very direct on this, quoting, "Race alone is a social construction." The point being, you can't explain these big disparities with simple genetic differences between groups. So if it's not just biology, what is it? The source points us right back to where we started this whole conversation. It suggests looking at those social and environmental factors. Things like differences in access to good healthcare, or maybe higher rates of employment in jobs with more hazardous exposures. Even things like living closer to waste sites or not having access to nutritious food. It all comes back to that first question: DNA or zip code? And that really brings us to the crucial take-home point of this entire explainer. Cancer development isn't just one thing. It is a complex, dynamic interplay between our genes, our lifestyle, and our environment. All three are constantly talking to each other. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. As a future healthcare professional, now that you can visualize this entire pathway, from the outside world to the cell to the real-world outcome, how does that change the way you think about patient education? How might it change your approach to prevention? Because really, understanding the why behind the disease, that's the first step to truly making a difference.